and try and buy it before you or something. Joe Biden knows that if he came out and gave a full-throated endorsement of Chris Wray and says, I can't wait to work with this guy, Donald Trump will fire him. He will fire him the day before the inauguration just to be petty and spiteful and venal. So I like the fact that, one, Joe Biden is returning to norms, but two, he recognizes that we're still in this tenuous place, that there's a lot of damaging things that Donald Trump can do in these next couple of weeks.
You know, can you weigh in, Jason Johnson, on this idea that we should turn the page completely and focus all of our energy and attention on the new administration? I feel that. That is what my heart says. But my head says we better watch damn close while Donald Trump still has his hands on the wheels and remains in the cockpit for the next 49 days.
Yeah, Nicole, you're exactly right. We have to. And there's a difference between decentering Donald Trump and the drama. I don't care where Jared and Ivanka go, right? I don't care how they're going to move their kids to Miami. That doesn't matter. But what does matter is the guy who still controls the wheels of power, as you said, he can make a difference. He can fire people. He can still make information difficult. We've got to make sure that members of his administration aren't selling state secrets, that they're not behind the scenes trying to negotiate their own way out so that they don't get investigated and prosecuted. So we have to watch every single thing that Donald Trump does until the day his key card doesn't work at the White House, because he has the ability that even if he technically hands over this government to Joe Biden on January 20th, there are so many damaging things he can do before then, between the pandemic, between the economy, and between national security. We've got to keep our eye on him. And Chris Wray is just one of those examples.
Charlie Sykes, you and I have had a lot of these conversations about the damage he can do in this transition to what Americans do if they go about their lives and think that masks don't really help, if they go about their holidays and say, I'm having a gathering, I really miss my loved ones. But we haven't talked quite as much about everything that's in the news this week. The news last night, the revelation that there's a DOJ investigation into a possible bribery scheme around pardons. Now, as Andrew Weissman said, we should have predicted that it would end that way. But what do you make of sort of this final last gasping, sordid chapter of Trump's presidency?
Well, I want to agree with Jason. This is actually the most dangerous 60 days of the Trump presidency, because I think we can probably spare ourselves some heartburn if we recognize, look, there are no norms that he is not willing to violate. There's no standard of decency that he's not willing to shred. And unfortunately, he has put a target on Christopher Wray's back right now. Look, we have not even seen how low he's going to go on the pardon palooza. We don't know what the extent of the corruption is going to be. But what we do know is the president of the United States right now in real time is trying to overturn a legitimate democratic election. If somebody would have suggested a few years ago, Nicole, that we would be seeing a president of the United States that is actively trying to disenfranchise millions of voters to overturn an election and have himself declared the winner, people would have thought, oh, that's Trump derangement syndrome. But that's literally what's going on right now. And again, every single day, we're seeing that this is a man untrammeled, but we knew this. I mean, he is who he is. Who he's always been, but a man untrammeled by any sense of ethics or respect for history. I mean, a little while ago, we were debating, is he going to show up at the inauguration? Well, now it looks like not only is he not going to show up at the inauguration, he may stage his own counter-inauguration. And he may make that a litmus test for the Republican Party whether they're going to show up. So, no, I think we got to keep our eyes very much focused on this president, because just when we think he's done all the damage he can do, there's another 2 months to go.
You know, Charlie, I want to press you on this idea of just how sad and pathetic that is. You can just see him, you know, screaming at the poor, you know, sorry advance guy, because he'll no longer have access to WACA, which is White House communications folks who set things up in presidential caliber. So you can see him screaming at whoever the next Brad Parscale turned out to be, or whoever's still left from his 5-week jihad against American democracy. And but the idea that pathetic display could have any sway over elected Republicans is such a sad indictment of elected Republicans.
You know, it is. But let me also point out what a sad indictment it is of American democracy right now. that you have the vast majority of Republican voters who are willing to believe many of the things that the president is saying, who doubt the legitimacy of this election. And, I know that there are people out there who are saying, well, the institutions have been resilient. We've gotten through it. He's taken his shot. But I kind of wonder whether or not our constitutional republic is like this giant battleship that's been hit by a torpedo under the waterline, and whether we don't know how much water we're taking in right now. Because if we have a country where 47% of Americans don't believe that our democracy works or don't believe that the elected president of the United States is legitimate, then we really have turned the page in the democratic history of this country. That is real damage, long-term damage. And what we've seen is that Donald Trump is prepared to inflict that damage and continue to. If I make one more point,
please.
You had this very emotional, you covered this yesterday, this very emotional plea from the elections official in Georgia. Mr. President, watch the language you're using. People are going to die. People are going to be shot. This is crucial. How does the president respond to that? By doubling down on his rhetoric, by pushing it even further, by pitting the deranged versus the demented versus the conspiracy theorist. And so, Donald Trump is not done damaging this country by a long time, and he won't be for a long time, because if he announces he's running in 2024, the Republican Party, which has been held hostage for the last 4 years, will be held hostage for another 4 years, and they will be married to Donald Trump's mendacity and his lies.
Jason, the only thing I disagree with is the idea that they're held hostage. I mean, they willingly went on to the pirate ship with Donald Trump. I want to keep you on this point that Charlie has raised. You and I have for years now looked at these specific and brutal examples of Donald Trump refusing to condemn violence, and in some instances using the most violent language in the arena himself, chanting "send her back" about Congresswoman, talking about the squad, using violent language to describe what to do to peaceful protesters, using war terms to talk about what the media is, enemy of the people. And it has, as Charlie just used, it has often been put in the bucket of Trump derangement syndrome or hypersensitivity to his language. But we are right now at a place where his language most threatens the grassroots of the Republican Party that thought they were somehow riding his coattails into more prominence in the National Party. He is targeting the kinds of statewide officials who a few years down the road would show up in Iowa and kick the tires on a national run. He's targeting statewide officials in Georgia who get the same voter who voted for Governor Kemp and Secretary of State Raffensperger voted for Donald Trump. He is smashing up the future of the Republican Party. Personally, I think that's what they deserve. They built Frankenstein, and now they're mad that he's destructive. But what do you think pumps the brakes? Do you think someone has to, as this official Gabriel Sterling warned yesterday, he said, quote, someone's going to get shot. Do you think it has to come to that to wake up anybody else that might have any influence in the party, or do you think it's too far gone?
I think it's too far gone, Nicole. Look, Gabby Giffords was shot. Steve Scalise was shot. And Steve Scalise didn't even change his mind about much of gun control. These people have been in an abusive relationship, an abusive personal and political relationship with Donald Trump for 4 years. That's what they've signed up for. And it's, the Dr. Phil says you go from being a victim to a volunteer. They're volunteering for this abuse at this point, because the very same people who are crying crocodile tears now about these threats and about the violence, they didn't have anything to say when he was saying lock her up. They didn't have anything to say when Donald Trump told police, hey, knock somebody's head before you bring him inside. They didn't have anything to say when Donald Trump said, hey, beat up that protester. I'll pay your legal bills. They said it was funny. They changed their mind. They said, oh, it's no big deal. You people are all concerned. So while I don't want to see anyone hurt, I don't want to see anybody hurt or suffering, I don't have a lot of empathy for people who are perfectly willing to tolerate this abuse as long as it was somebody that they didn't like. And I think, unfortunately, what we're going to see is violence. Because honestly, Nicole, the closer we get to Inauguration Day, that's where the real derangement is going to come out. When it finally exhausts itself, when everybody recognizes that none of these crazy schemes by my cousin Vinny, Rudy Giuliani, his crazy schemes are not going to work. You're going to have people who decide to take this into their own hands and get violent, and it will be right at the doorstep of Donald Trump and the millions of people who enabled him.
Jason Johnson, Charlie Sykes.
I agree.
The most important conversations I've been a part of since the election.